betrayed by my twin brother and my fiancé, so I cut them off completely. My name is Sam Walker, and until recently, at 28 years old, I thought I had my life perfectly mapped out. I was engaged to my wonderful girlfriend, Jessica, who is 26, and we had been together for 5 blissful years, building what I thought was an incredible partnership. That all came crashing down when my identical twin brother, Mike, committed the most unforgivable act of treachery against me. Mike and I have always been incredibly close, even though we obviously clashed over the typical sibling rivalries growing up. We were twins born just 12 minutes apart in Oklahoma, and that intrinsic twin bond forged an inseparable connection throughout our entire childhood. We went to the same schools, had all the same friends, played all the same sports, and even studied the same accounting major in college without ever drifting apart. After graduating, Mike and I both accepted job offers at the same prestigious accounting firm in downtown Tulsa. It seemed we would continue our journey as twins working side by side into adulthood, just as we'd always envisioned as kids. Part of me wondered if we might finally go our separate ways, but that twin magnetism kept us aligned. When I first started dating Jessica in our early 20s, Mike was immensely supportive. He seemed truly happy that I had found someone special, and the three of us hung out together constantly, going to movies, concerts, bars, you name it. Mike never once gave me a reason to believe he had any hidden feelings or ulterior motives when it came to Jessica back then. In fact, he cycled through his own fair share of short-lived girlfriends over the years, too. After 4 incredible years together, I decided it was time to make Jessica my wife. I spent about a month meticulously planning an elaborate surprise proposal for our anniversary. Mike was in on the plan from the beginning. The scheme was that he would lure Jessica to my parents' house under the guise of a casual family dinner, where I would actually be waiting to propose in front of everybody. Mike helped me pick out a stunning engagement ring and recruit our families to covertly fly into town for the party. We spent a whole afternoon decorating my parents' backyard into a romantically intimate setting with flowers, candles, and twinkling lights. It was going to be a truly perfect, unforgettable moment that Jessica would never see coming. And unforgettable it was, just not for the reasons I expected. When Mike brought Jessica through that front door on the night of May 15th, 2021, our 4-year anniversary, the look of shock and awe on her face was priceless. She was speechless as I dropped to one knee, poured my heart out about how much I loved her, and asked her to be my wife. Jessica said yes through tears of joy, and our families erupted in cheers as I slid that dazzling diamond on her finger. Mike was over the moon with excitement, wrapping us both in a huge hug and kissing Jessica's cheek. "I'm so happy for you two," he told us, tears in his own eyes. Little did I know at the time that crocodile tears were the first act in his duplicitous performance. We partied with our families well into the night, celebrating our engagement and the future we had started meticulously planning and envisioning together as a couple. Jessica couldn't stop admiring her new engagement ring, clutching my hand as she flashed it around the room. I was deliriously happy, unaware of the darkness that was waiting just around the corner. A few weeks later, I was out running some errands when I realized I had left my phone at the apartment. No big deal, I thought. I'll just swing by quickly to grab it before continuing on. Little did I know that coming home at that specific unplanned moment would turn out to be one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. As I approached our bedroom to retrieve my phone, I heard muffled voices coming from inside. Thinking nothing of it and assuming Jessica was just on a call, I swung open that bedroom door completely unprepared for the brutally visceral scene I was about to witness. My fiancée Jessica, fully nude and shockingly disheveled in our own bed, with my own twin brother Mike, both of them freezing in shock, like a pair of deer in headlights at being caught so insidiously. I was stunned into silence, my brain unable to fully process the magnitude of betrayal unraveling right before my eyes. Jessica immediately burst into tears as she scrambled to cover herself, while Mike just stared back at me dumbfounded, rendered equally speechless in that moment. After what felt like an eternity of weighted stillness, I finally mustered the words every betrayed partner dreads having to utter. What the fuck is going on here? The way I saw it, there was no explanation that could justify or rationalize this gut-wrenching situation. Of course, Jessica tried anyway. Through heaving sobs, she bawled, "This isn't what it looks like," and other such ludicrous denials in a futile attempt at self-preservation. The anger and disbelief coursing through my veins made me feel like I was going to combust. I couldn't even look at them anymore. I stormed out and drove around aimlessly for hours, my brain unable to fully process the reality that the two people I loved and trusted most in this world had been lying to me and betraying me in such an exquisitely painful way. And it clearly wasn't just a drunken one-night mistake, as I would later find out. No, this was a full-blown affair that had apparently been going on for who knows how long under the surface, rendering the entire engagement period and anniversary celebration as shams built upon lies and duplicity. When I finally felt grounded enough to actually confront them again, I went back to the apartment. Sure enough, Jessica was still there, eyes swollen from seemingly endless streams of remorseful tears. The shower was running as Mike no doubt pathetically tried to wash away the stench of guilt and betrayal. I demanded they explain themselves and justify their unforgivable actions against me. Of course, neither could provide any true justification beyond Jessica's half-hearted claims that this was just a one-time mistake and moment of weakness. They were insulting my intelligence after such a grotesque violation of trust and decency. Mike actually tried to claim he had suppressed feelings and attraction towards Jessica that he simply couldn't control, as if that excused willingly cuckolding your own twin brother and childhood best friend. The audacity of these two was utterly stupefying. In that moment, I made it clear that their well of deception was salt in the wound. Our relationships were severed permanently and immediately. I insistently told Mike to take his things and get out, that his blood relation to me meant nothing now that he had so utterly disgraced it. Over the span of the next hour, I sat in cold stillness as Jessica and Mike boxed up what little belongings they could take in their humiliation. Jessica made feeble, sniveling pleas for a second chance, for some sort of avenue towards forgiveness. But I was utterly deafened by her words at this point. The extent of her betrayal was so complete that I struggled to even look her in the eyes. Finally, mercifully, they finished packing their things and walked out that door one by one, hopefully for the final time. As the door clicked shut, I felt a bizarre combination of devastating heartbreak and relieving freedom all at once. My life had irrevocably changed, and there was no going back from the devastation they had wrought. In the days that followed, I sadly relayed to my family and closest friends the full extent of Mike and Jessica's deplorable betrayal. Though severely disappointed, my parents and siblings at least understood the unforgivable breach of trust and severed all ties with Mike themselves, disowning him as their own flesh and blood. Jessica's friends followed a similar path, shunning her from their social circles upon learning about her sickening infidelity and treacherous transgressions. I didn't care. She brought that isolation upon herself, and whatever shred of sympathy I may have had dissipated instantly when I learned that this affair had been going on for months, perhaps even before the engagement itself took place. In other words, Mike's involvement in helping me plan this whole intricate proposal was just another layer of duplicity. His crocodile tears of joy were rendered even more grotesque, knowing he had been carrying on an affair with my fiancé the entire time. The realization made me feel even worse for being so blindsided and manipulated in such a personal, intimate way. And it's been over a year since that fateful day when my life was shattered by the ultimate betrayal. In that time, I've run through every emotion in the spectrum. Rage, sadness, disbelief, emptiness. There have been plenty of days where waves of anger still wash over me at the mere thought of how Jessica and Mike could be so unbelievably selfish and cruel. I trusted them both more than anyone else in the world. And they willingly violated that trust in possibly the worst way imaginable. Not just through romantic infidelity, but with that infidelity also involving incestuous deceit between blood relatives. It's a level of depravity that still turns my stomach. Jessica's hollow pleas and apologies rang so utterly empty. "I love you more than anything," she cried as I kicked her out for good. "How could someone who truly loved me stab me so viciously in the back?" Her words reeked of gaslighting desperation, willing to say anything in that moment to try preserving her own self-interests. And Mike, my own twin brother, my best friend from literally the moment we were born together. We had spent our entire lives having an unbreakable bond, going through everything side by side. Yet he threw all that away in an instant because he simply couldn't control his own lust and jealousy towards me. The ultimate example of, if I can't have it, he can't either pettiness. I'll never understand how either of them could live with themselves after such a grotesque violation. Perhaps they're just fundamentally rotten people at their cores, morally bankrupt narcissists willing to betray anyone and anything if it means selfishly getting what they want in a particular moment. It's the only explanation that makes any semblance of sense to me. There have been just as many days, however, where I've felt an incredible level of freedom and lightness from permanently removing such toxic, depraved influences from my world. As painful as their actions were, they were also an addition by subtraction of sorts. Jessica and Mike showed their true colors irrefutably, allowing me to promptly and permanently cut out their cancers without any lingering ambiguity. My family has had my back every step of the way in that regard, making it clear Mike is dead to them as well after his willing acts of treachery and depravity. As for Jessica's so-called friends, the real ones ceased contact with her just as immediately once learning about her unfathomable betrayal of me and our relationship. With such swift actions of solidarity, I was able to insulate myself from any potential guilt trips, manipulation tactics, or continued drama from either party. They made their bed, told their lies, and irreversibly destroyed any semblance of trust or family. I don't have to spend any energy hating them or dwelling on it. I can simply move forward appreciating who was there for me during my darkest moments. Because as much as Jessica and Mike's actions devastated me, they also helped illuminate the amazing system of authentic loved ones who truly have my back. I've been able to pour myself into nurturing those meaningful relationships. The people who stuck by me without judgment or falsehood. They provided warm hugs, celebratory drinks, and caring advice to help me recalibrate my world in the aftermath. My friends became my family in the wake of having my blood relatives symbolically ripped away. It was a sobering life lesson that the family you choose is ultimately more important than the family you're arbitrarily born into. I sadly watched Mike's actions permanently exile him from that chosen family group, and I don't lose any sleep knowing he'll have to live with the consequences of his own disgraceful behavior. I'd be lying if I said the sadness, confusion, and occasional resentment have been completely erased over the past year. The sharp pain has dissipated into a dull ache as time has helped me regain perspective. But every now and then, some small reminder will trigger a flood of raw emotions that instantly takes me back to that indescribable moment of catching them together. In those moments when the raw flood of emotions hits me again, I have to keep reminding myself that Jessica and Mike's deplorable actions were not a reflection of any shortcomings on my part. I didn't become unlovable or inadequate overnight. They are simply fundamentally flawed people rotten to their cores. Their betrayal speaks volumes about who they truly are as human beings, not who I am. I was simply an unfortunate victim of their selfish games and lack of basic human decency. I have to constantly reassure myself that I didn't do anything to deserve being burned so completely. With the perspective of time, I've been able to look back and realize there were likely red flags and subtle clues to their deception that I was too blissfully ignorant to pick up on in the moment. The way Mike seemed a bit too enthusiastic about helping me plan that elaborate proposal out of nowhere. How Jessica's demeanor would occasionally shift whenever he was around. Little things I didn't think twice about at the time, but that take on a more sinister hue in hindsight. I try not to beat myself up over missing those cues, though. At the end of the day, I wanted to see only the good in the people I trusted most. I'm not a naturally cynical person, and I don't view that as a personal flaw. It's just part of my character. Jessica and Mike's dysfunction was their own burden to carry, not something I could have reasonably detected with any concrete evidence in front of me. That doesn't make the pain of being gaslit and manipulated hurt any less, of course. I'm still working through feelings of embarrassment, humiliation, and loss over being so completely betrayed and deceived about the reality of the situation I thought I knew. The rug was completely pulled out from under me in such a visceral, intimate way. But perhaps that's just one more reason to take solace in removing them from my world completely. They don't deserve to have any more power or headspace. Lingering in the negativity only lets them win in the long run. The best revenge is to let all that baggage go and focus on living a life of happiness and integrity that they'll never witness or be able to ruin again. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do, one day at a time. I'm happily redefining my new normal without those toxins, allowing my world to be elevated rather than dragged down. I've rededicated myself to my career and picking up some old hobbies I'd fallen out of touch with, and have made more of an effort to appreciate the loved ones who never betrayed me. Life really does have an infinite amount of good things to offer when you're not weighed down by the shackles of deception and betrayal. Some days I feel like I'm finally turning that proverbial corner too. I can go a whole week at a time now without having my mind drift to dark places when reminded of what happened. I know the sadness and anger may never disappear entirely. That level of intimate violation leaves permanent scars. But I'm doing my best to tend to those wounds through self-care, whether it's meditation, exercise, or just allowing myself to feel those emotions without judgment when they arise. Bottling it up only gives them more power in the long run. More than anything, this whole experience has taught me to be more acutely attuned to human nature and character. I can no longer simply accept people at face value based on familiarity or status, be it family ties, friendship history, social standing, or whatever superficial identity they attempt to craft. The hard truth is that every human being is flawed and equally capable of great good or despicable evil. Trust has to be continually earned over time through a person's consistent actions, not just blindly assumed. I had pedestalized my own twin brother and fiancé to such an extent that it made me oblivious to their poor character beneath the surface. Never again will I allow myself to fall into that trap of idolizing or coveting certain individuals to an unrealistic extent. I'm going to stay grounded in discernment and authenticity to protect my own heart moving forward. And if I'm being fully honest and vulnerable, I'd be lying if I said a part of me didn't feel a bit jaded or cynical towards the prospect of a truly committed relationship after this experience. It's hard not to have some of that optimistic idealism chipped away when you get betrayed so completely by the person you viewed as your forever partner. Watching Jessica go from happily accepting my engagement ring and publicly proclaiming her love for me, to secretly sleeping with my own twin brother behind my back in a drawn-out affair, IT, really does make you second-guess how well you can ever truly know someone. If I couldn't spot that level of deception from the one person I was closest to in the world, how can I be sure of anyone else's intentions? It would be easy to let this one traumatic event calcify my heart and close myself off from ever being that vulnerable with someone new again. To put up permanent walls and simply accept being alone out of self-preservation from future hurt. Some of my guy friends have even joked that I should just give up on relationships entirely and save myself the drama. But that simply isn't me and isn't the way I want to live my life. I'm not going to let the misdeeds and moral failings of two people define my entire existence moving forward. Yes, I may be more cautious and take things slower when it comes to opening myself up again after this violation. But giving up on love altogether because of one disaster would be allowing Jessica and Mike to claim a long-term victory that they don't deserve. I'm still holding out faith that there are amazing, good-hearted women out there who value loyalty, commitment, and trust as foundational priorities in a relationship. Someone who would never even conceive of betraying their partner in such a devastating way, let alone actually following through on it. Those women do exist. I know because I've witnessed other examples of beautiful, honorable marriages throughout my life. It may take some time to heal all the way before I open myself up to finding that person again. But giving up on that goal altogether would honestly be letting the worst elements of humanity win. I know I'm better than that, and deserving of an incredible partnership when the right situation arises organically. In the meantime, I'm doing my best to focus inward and rediscover the parts of myself that make me a good person and catch beyond just being a loving partner. This experience has forced me to redefine my own value and identity as an individual, rather than basing so much of my self-worth on the way I get treated by others. I'm trying to appreciate the simple joys of everyday life that have nothing to do with romantic entanglement. Reconnecting with old friends over beer and a ball game, pushing myself physically through athletic goals, and appreciating the mental clarity it provides. Diving back into hobbies and passions that make me feel professionally fulfilled. Little by little, I'm rebuilding that core self-appreciation. Because at the end of the day, the only person whose approval I truly need is my own. Jessica and Mike's actions freed me from the burden of constantly seeking outside validation. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely want and crave an eventual partnership and all the wonderful intimate sharing that comes with it. But I also know I'm enough of a person to be happy and whole without needing someone else to validate me. With that mindset, I know true. All-encompassing love and commitment will find me again when the timing and situation is right. I'm simply staying open to the universe's plan, while doing the inner work to be the best version of myself possible. When the right person comes along and sees that self-love and authenticity in me, it will be an easy decision to let them into my life and share that beautiful experience together. Until then, I'm taking it hour by hour and day by day, constantly redefining my own path forward without baggage weighing me down. When I do eventually decide to put myself out there again, it won't be out of codependence or necessity, only out of an earnest desire to share my fulfilled life with someone worthy of that gift. I try not to judge others for how they chose to move on from traumatic relationship experiences. Everyone has to find their own way to heal in due time. For me, focusing on total self-acceptance and growth as an individual has been the key to rising up from the ashes of the betrayal. Through this incredibly painful life lesson, I've learned that nothing, no person, no relationship, no external source, can ever define my value or self-worth as a human being again. That's not to say the actions of my ex-fiancée Jessica and my former best friend, twin brother Mike, didn't shake me to my core. Their united deception on that horrific night still haunts me at times. But I've grown immensely from that initial devastation to arrive at a new inner peace and appreciation for myself. When Jessica tearfully said yes when I proposed, it felt like the happiest moment of my life up until the sickening revelation that she was already secretly betraying me with my own flesh and blood at that very moment. The juxtaposition is still hard to wrap my head around, but I've worked on separating the positive forward momentum of my life from the darkness of that situation. Their actions, as shocking as they were, emanated from their own dysfunction and brokenness, not from anything I'd caused or deserved. That doesn't excuse the hurt, but it helps me see the truth, that the depth of their betrayal spoke volumes about who they are as people rather than who I am. Because in the years since that fateful anniversary night, I've realized just how complete a person I am, standing on my own 2 feet. When Jessica cried tears of supposed joy upon seeing me on one knee, proposing to the love of my life, in that moment Mike was only concerned about himself. His immediate reaction was feigning pride and happiness for a sibling ritual he had actively undermined. And yet the most devastating part was the disgraceful way he let me celebrate afterwards, oblivious to the deception. That very night, he surely watched with repressed jealousy over my heartfelt displays of lifelong commitment to the woman he craved for himself. It's chilling to think about the sick satisfaction he must have felt watching me profess eternal partnership with such enthusiasm, all while plotting his insidious next move from the shadows. Lost in my own love and happiness, I never thought that 2 of the people closest to me were so warped as to execute something this damaging. I'll never understand Jessica's motivations, just as I'll never understand most of Mike's reasonings beyond the transparent streams of jealousy woven throughout his transgressions. The why doesn't matter much anymore. Whatever misguided forces united them in deception revealed their own true colors more than anything else. And those colors of deceit, betrayal, manipulation, and eroded morality cloaked in selfishness are no longer shades I aspire to being blinded by again. That era of hurt is now comfortably in my rear view, removed from the perspective I carry as I move forward into the light of new possibilities and personal growth. Because as devastatingly as those closest to me conspired to gaslight and sabotage my trust foundations, I'm paradoxically grateful in retrospect that it happened. It allowed me to burn those caustic influencers out of my life with a new outer insulation wrapped around that irreparably cauterized wound. While the residual burn remains, I'm no longer susceptible to being consumed again by the same external fires. My focus is realigned towards a higher purpose, self-actualization as a purified individual who proactively cultivates surrounding energy to be as equally elevating as possible. That doesn't absolve or excuse past betrayals. It simply empowers me to construct my world now in a way allowing only for honest, enriching connections moving forward. It's incredibly sobering to reflect on how someone I loved enough to pledge permanent unification with could demonstrate such profound deficiency of integrity so early in actualizing that commitment. Just as it's profoundly disheartening, even in retrospect, to accept how another person I held as my most intimate confidant could betray me at that existential level. But the hurt has catalyzed my determination to carry onward and upward, holding myself to the highest standards of truth, authenticity, and humanity, not just for my own integrity, but to set an example for surrounding energies to enhance rather than corrosively erode life quality. Those aspiring to enter my life now must clear lofty barriers of vulnerability, respect, and character. I don't wield that expectation as a weapon for loneliness or scorning, just a protective force focused on attracting enriching human connections unburdened by toxicity. It's the ultimate reprisal crafted not out of trauma-motivated anger, but an awakened understanding that my life's purpose is to manifest worthiness of myself first, and also the beautiful commonality that self-love and self-respect inspire in attracting equally present partnership with others aligned on those priorities. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, openness to that two-way avenue is the only true intimacy I wish to explore going forward. So while past betrayal stung with enough psychic corrosion to permanently impact me in some ways, this hard-won introspection has also equipped me with invaluable wisdom for attracting healthy relationships on whatever path comes next. The ultimate takeaway of this painful saga is that I not only survived breach of previously inconceivable trust boundaries, but that I've emerged with a solidified understanding of what people, dynamics, and energies bring out the best in me. And from that foundational clarity, anything is possible when manifesting the life you want to live, the inner peace you aspire towards, and the joys and passions you hope to explore without any compromises along the way. I'd like to say Jessica and Mike's intended wounds have closed and healed over completely, but I don't think that's entirely accurate or necessary to claim. Some scars remain, as reminders of the lessons they taught me against my will. Powerful ones about loyalty, respect, and self-awareness that permanently transformed my perspective. But the long-term infections they might have caused have been cleared and salved over with other, more nourishing wisdom about what a healthy relationship should truly entail. My commitment to seeking and nurturing that kind of dynamic hasn't wavered, and crucially, I don't measure my own worthiness or inner value by some external scale of their making anymore. I define that truth for myself now, and I'm a stronger person because of it. More resilient, with healthier self-esteem and a clarity of vision for the bonds I want to cultivate in my life. So in many ways, I'm immensely grateful for the perspective they showed me, even if fatally twisted in the heat of their own dysfunction. It ripped off the rose-colored lenses and forced me to see certain harsh realities about control, toxic bonds, and how people can subvert even the most ostensibly sincere connections. But that's not a weakness or regret on my part. It's an awakening, a callus formed through direct experience that allows me to approach intimacy with more authentic grounding, without fear of being deceived or re-exposing old wounds, because now I'm ultimately the gatekeeper of my vulnerabilities and boundaries. The path forward is open, but on my own empowered terms, unswayed by manipulation, and with hard-earned wisdom that lets me more confidently distinguish sincere partnership from the hollow imitations of it. Today, I harbor no lingering bitterness over what happened. Just wisdom to carry into new opportunities life offers for mutually nurturing connections, armed with reinforced insight for vetting genuine intentions up front. Like water finding its way to the sea, there was nowhere allowing that toxicity to stagnate inside me. It simply ebbed away, leaving clarity, resilience, and a confidence welcoming positive energy, yet wisely vigilant towards anything destructive taking root. No longer do I have to wonder what if about the hurtful transgressions inflicted upon me. Because I've already endured and let go of the worst-case outcome, I can proceed with an unshakable resolve that no matter what comes next, choosing my path forward, and the people I walk it with, will remain solely up to me and my values. It was a painful storm I weathered, but one with silver linings of wisdom and opportunity pouring over any erosions lingering. Now it's time for smooth sailing towards horizons of purpose and worthy connections, calmer seas and brighter days, all guided by my recharged perspective of optimism and hope.